California has shattered mail voting records with unprecedented ballot return rates.
Early voters are stuck waiting in long lines. We talked to voters across the country about their concerns.
The Galen Center is just one of many sports centers that will be open for voting. Find out where LA residents can cast their ballots. See It Live starts now.
Mail-in ballots have become a popular choice this election because of COVID concerns. I'm Leanna Falk, reporting from Los Angeles.
And I'm Cambry Guest, also reporting from LA. California voters have already mailed in over 2 million ballots. For the first time in state history, every registered California voter is getting a ballot in the mail. More than 21 million ballots are being mailed, more than any state in the nation. More than 2 million Californians have already returned their ballots, accounting for 10% of voters. And if you have any questions about how to complete your mail-in ballot, Annenberg Media's Genevieve Glass has the answer.
More people than usual are using the vote by mail option as a result of the pandemic.
So this year will actually be my first time voting from home. I've always done in-person voting. I've voted in every election since I turned 18. And it just feels like the safer option. I mean, I love that it came in early enough, and I feel like my vote will be secured.
In order to make sure your vote is counted, there are 5 things you need to know. First, make sure your ballot group number in the top right corner of your official ballot card matches the number found on the bottom left corner of your return envelope.
I did not know I had a match number from the bottom left of the return envelope to the top right of the ballot. It's the first time I'm hearing about that.
Use only blue or black ink to mark your choice. You must fill in the entire oval, no X's or check marks, and only vote for one person or measure. And if you make a mistake, you can always request a new ballot. Place your ballot in the vote by mail envelope and sign the back of it with the same signature used on your state ID. Don't forget to fill in the date that you signed the ballot as well as your address. Kim Alexander, the president of the California Voter Foundation, says simple mistakes have major consequences.
Ballot rejection is a problem in California and elsewhere. We saw in the March 2020 primary that over 102,000 ballots statewide were rejected. The primary reason for those rejections was because they were too late.
Remember, no postage is required. You can send it back using the return envelope provided, but make sure it's postmarked by November 3rd. Or you can drop it off at an official ballot box like this one or at one of your county's local voting centers.
The only thing worse than people not voting is people trying to vote and having their ballots go uncounted. You want to have a plan, pick a date, do your homework. Remember, you don't have to vote on everything on the ballot. It's not a test.
But if you're voting by mail, a sure way to fail is by missing the November 3rd deadline. For Annenberg Media, I'm Genevieve Glass.
It's a battle over ballot boxes. In California, Republican officials have installed unofficial ballot boxes, but the Secretary of State says that's illegal. The problem is those boxes are too vulnerable to tampering. In Orange County, the Registrar of Voters explains why.
The drop boxes themselves really aren't the issue. It's the fact that they're unattended. And so when you just leave an unattended drop box out for someone to deposit their ballot into, that's prohibited under California law. So it's concerning. And if you feel comfortable delivering it to a third party and they put it into a box and they keep it secure until they deliver it to my office, then by all means, absolutely do that.
California lawmakers took the ballot battle to Twitter. Secretary of State Alex Padilla tweeted this morning, Republicans claim to be concerned about voter fraud, while data shows it is exceedingly rare. Yet they show no remorse for violating state law by using unofficial, unauthorized ballot drop boxes that are blatantly misleading. California State Senator Melissa Melendez fired back at the Republican response, saying, "It appears Republicans are well within their right to collect ballots in this manner. It's just that Democrats don't like it."
As in-person voting begins in states like North Carolina and across the country, some voters are concerned about the risk of COVID-19 as they head to the polls. If you're choosing to vote in person, there are a few precautions that you can take to stay safe. Be aware of long wait times at polling places and prepare for longer lines due to social distancing. Check-in stations and voting booths will also be spread out to reduce interaction among voters and poll workers.
The United States decentralized voting system means each state has its own voting laws. We spoke with the director of the Bipartisan Policy Center about the pros and cons of state-by-state voting policies.
The other reason why it's a good thing is because of security concerns. We did have foreign interference in the 2016 election. We know that there is every incentive for foreign governments to interfere in 2020. It's actually pretty hard to disrupt our process because there is no centralized system. It's 51 states. The cons, though, are that some voters have a lot more options, and that doesn't seem fair in one country, right? I mean, if you have so many more options to vote, and then voters elsewhere don't, there are certainly equity issues.
Some early voters in Texas are experiencing long lines and wait times. Texas has removed hundreds of voting sites and limited the number of ballot drop-off locations. These inconveniences limit voter turnout for certain groups. We talked to a Texas resident about his concerns about voter suppression.
Most of the shenanigans are taking place at the state capitol. You asked about general voter suppression. I'm referring back to the gerrymandering, sculpting the shape and location of the various districts in order to congregate or decongregate groups that they might be trying to disenfranchise. So the folks in power, trying to change the layout of the various districts to a technical advantage.
Arizona voters received 3 booklets of voter information with their ballots. But while the information was sent out early, ballot boxes are not yet available. We talked to an Arizona student who is holding on to her ballot until she is able to get her vote counted.
I received my mail-in ballot ahead of time. I filled out my ballot, but there isn't a ballot drop-off location open yet in my area. So that'll be open for me on the 22nd. The 22nd is only a week or two before the actual election. And so it is a little inconvenient for people if they have work to be able to find a time to take it off.
The out-of-state voting process is complicated enough as it is, but coupled with a global pandemic, and it could be a first-time voter's worst nightmare. Gen Z and millennial voters will make up 37% of the electorate this November, many voting for the first time. For many out-of-state voters, the mail-in process is causing anxiety and takes up much more time than expected. But some USC students are choosing to vote in their home states because they believe it will make more of a difference.
The biggest obstacle for me has been the fear of my vote getting lost somehow, or not being counted. It was relatively easy to request it, but there's not really a lot of communication about where your ballot is once you request it, so you just kind of have to wait, or at least that's how it is when you vote in Georgia. So that was worrisome.
So I've called the Department of Elections several times. They said at first my ballot was on its way, then they said it's lost in the mail, and now I have to fill out a form and mail it back to them saying that I didn't get my ballot, signing it under federal punishment if I lie. I'm pretty stressed out and worried about it just because for this form to get here and then to mail it back to Virginia and then for me to get my ballot and mail my ballot back, I'm just worried it won't make it back in time for my vote to be counted.
With early in-person voting underway in some states, poll watchers are heading back to work. The purpose of having poll watchers is to make sure rules are followed and elections are fair. I'm Brett Chody, reporting from Los Angeles. Poll watchers generally monitor the polls to keep track of voter turnout for their party and report that information to party officials. We spoke to a California woman who is traveling with her husband to Arizona to poll watch for the Democratic Party because it's a swing state.
So for us, it's just about going into a purple or a swing state and making sure that there's not intimidation or voter suppression going on, just being there on the day of the polls to watch the watchers, I suppose.
Each state has different rules and criteria for poll watchers, but if you're interested, you can contact your local election office to sign up. The Galen Center will serve as the main USC voting center. We talked to the co-president of Vote SC, who talks about the impact of voter participation for USC students.
Everyone kind of knows where the Galen Center is if you're a student. And I just think the association with USC athletics too is a major pull for people. I know a lot of athletes have been promoting going to vote, whether it be by mail or in person. Even if you were able to kind of ask one friend who normally wouldn't vote to vote, that already sort of like doubles your impact in a way. Like 2 votes is definitely better than 1.
Several professional sporting venues in LA will open as voting sites. These include Dodger Stadium, Staples Center, SoFi Stadium, Bank of California Stadium, and the Clippers' new home, the Forum in Inglewood.
Thanks, Brett. I actually just applied for my absentee ballot yesterday, so I'm looking forward for that to coming in, and then I'll be walking down to 7th Street to drop it in one of the ballot boxes. How are you voting, Cambry?
I'm actually going to be voting absentee as well. I am mailing in my ballot to Oklahoma tomorrow, so I'm very excited. It's actually the first presidential election that I've been able to vote in, so it's coming down to this day for a long time, but it feels good.
Wow, congratulations, newbie. Oh, that wraps it up for us on this Thursday. Thanks for tuning in.
And from all of us at See It Live, have a good night.